It's KCRW, Morning Becomes Eclectic. I'm Jason Bentley, and we are joined by Damien Rice. Hello, Damien.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening.
My favorite Faded Fantasy. This is the album title and the opening song for the new album.
Yeah.
Love the phrase, love the title. It just automatically opens up a whole world of a kind of a personal world, of an intimate world. So talk a little bit about this. Well, first of all, where you been, man? Where have you been?
In a drain pipe. Scraping off the scum that built up over the years and blocked up my pipes. Pretty much. I've been down there. Yeah, in the ugly places inside, just and not that they're ugly, but just that that's certainly the way I felt about them before going into surgery, in a sense, you know.
So a bit of soul searching here.
Maybe that's a way to describe it. Soul searching doesn't resonate with me for what it was I was at. I was more destroying my killing myself, almost destroying my life, just destroying my perception of everything that I had about life and how I was living life, until it got to a place where I didn't have the same view on the world, where basically until everything sort of fell apart. And then when I was in a place where everything had authentically fallen apart for me, then I could sort of start anew and put it all back together. Was there a turning point that you can recognize where things just got bad? Yeah, there's a few. And like, if I think about it now, I don't look back at any of the situations that happened as being bad, because I just don't have that. It's like there's a couple of words I've deleted from my dictionary. I literally got and ripped out, good, bad, ugly, beautiful. I just started ripping out lots of these adjectives from my life, and just so if I pick one situation that I would have thought was bad at the time, which was I suppose one of the most poignant was when myself and Lisa, that moment where we just stopped working together. That was like a very strange and intense and painful at the time, experience. And to have kind of like started off from such a dreamy place of innocence and beauty and love, and to go with that innocence out into life and making a record and things going so well and beautifully, and to end up in a place of destruction and negativity and hurt and confusion, and it was very disconcerting, and very painful. And it took quite a few years to kind of learn how to deal with the reality of such a loss, in a sense, because it did feel like a loss. It felt like a loss of innocence and a loss of just beauty and joy. And it felt like a really horrible way to grow up, in a sense, getting older and getting more negative as I was getting older. That's the way it started to feel. And along with that, I'd, quote unquote, achieved these things and received money, or these things that society tells you you're supposed to be happy when you have these things, and I had all these things and I was miserable, and so I really only had, or I felt like I really only had one choice at that time, which was just to drop my notions of absolutely everything and completely like smash it and just start again from scratch, and just start again with the whatever perception I had of whether it was the situation with Lisa, or the situation with the record company, or the situation with myself or my parents, or whatever it was. I would just take one thing at a time, and I would sit with it, and I would just kind of disassemble it until it didn't have the same power anymore, and until it just fell into this thing that I could just look at it and observe, and then I just started smiling at everything and finding everything really funny and really humorous, and then I started looking at the world and finding all these things in the world that I used to call bad or ugly, and just started finding them genuinely really funny, like just human behavior, the things that we do. It's like we're 20, 40, 50-year-old children having tantrums, you know, and going to war, or you know, whatever it is that we're doing. And I couldn't help but just sit there and go, we are hilarious. Like, we're just hilarious. We believe stuff that somebody told us when we were 5 years of age. Never question it, but we believe it and we hold on to it like it's a serious truth, and we suffer because of it, and then blame other people for our suffering. And I just found, and I had done so much of that, and I just, when that clicked and popped and all fell apart, I just felt this massive relief. And you know, I looked at every situation in my life, and anybody that I was angry at before, the anger just disappeared and turned completely into real laughter and gratitude or gratefulness towards the person for having just been in my life to show me how silly I can be, you know.
Well, your honesty is stunning and wonderful, and we appreciate it. Not everyone can express all of that about life. Where did you go physically, geographically, to kind of discover more, to peel away the layers, to start writing and working on this album?
I was in Ireland for a lot of time, going through my boxes of nothing.
Faded boxes.
And you know, and then I would travel a bit and then go back to Ireland, and travel a bit and go back to Ireland, and really, you know, it was a stop-start situation up until I actually just committed myself to working with Rick. And then I went to Los Angeles. So the record really started when I got to Los Angeles. That the real nitty-gritty work started there up in Shangri-La. And that was very much like boot camp, showing up every day, even though I didn't want to. That was the biggest thing that I kind of got to learn from that experience, which was I'd gotten so used to, you know, going with my feelings. Like, oh, I don't feel like writing right now, so I'm just not going to write, because I don't want to force it, you know, which is a great way to flow. But what had happened is I'd let that go too far to the other extreme, where it was like, I don't feel like doing anything right now, so nothing would happen, you know. And so I got up to work with Rick, and it was like, okay, it's 10 a.m. into the studio. It's like, okay, here I am. I've showed up for school. It felt like, you know. It's like, okay, sing that song. And it's like, I don't want to sing that song. Great, sing it anyway, you know. And through that sort of, like, in a sense, funny-ish boot camp type thing, my fingers started getting hard again on my guitar hand, you know. My voice started warming up again, and the muscles started getting, you know, it was like training, you know. And that's what I'd been lacking from before, was I'd fallen out of that training. So anytime I'd sing a song or record a song, I didn't like it because I wasn't fit, in a sense, you know. So I got fit. I went up and spent time with Rick and got fit, you know, studio fit, and then went to Iceland.
I want to ask you about that,
Yeah.
but before we go to Iceland, talk more about the interaction with Rick Rubin. I don't know him well, but he seems like this kind of Zen-like mystic figure. Was he a great sounding board for all of these ideas?
What would I say about Rick? He's, you know, the first thing that comes to mind, and it might sound funny or cheesy, I've come away from the experience where just this feeling like I love Rick. It's weird. It's an interesting thing. I think what it is that he has this ability to just invite you to just be yourself, like really, really be yourself, without having any attachment or need from his point of view for you to actually achieve anything. If you don't want to do it, great. And that sort of unattached vibe from his point of view, where he's just inviting you, but hey, if you don't want to do anything, it doesn't bother me. And he really had that sense of like, it didn't matter to him at all, but like if you can do it, great, it's up to you. It made me sort of show up more, because it just my respect for him. He had no sense of wanting to put any sort of a stamp onto me, and there was no sense of him wanting to push the record in this direction or that direction, or he was literally like, what do you want to do? It was really like, how can I help you do what it is you want to do? It was like, and that sense of him almost putting himself there in front of me, completely in service, made me feel like, whoa, what can I do for you? It made me respond with a sense of like a real whoosh.
It sounds deceivingly simple.
Yeah, well, it was simple, very simple, but hard. Yeah.
So Iceland, I do see on the liner notes that things were recorded at different locations, and I noticed Iceland showed up a lot. What's the Iceland connection?
Volcanoes melt me down. No, just it's the color of the people. I think they. What is it about them? They.
Well, how did you find yourself there?
A concert 10 years ago or something, 12 years ago maybe. I can't remember exactly when it was, but yeah, I just got invited there for a concert, and that was a really good example of what it is to love about Iceland. I had just come from a tour in Europe, got off the tour bus, and I was going to Iceland for a solo concert. And so I took my pedal board and the bits of gear, and I was going to fly to Iceland. And I hadn't flown with my touring gear before, because it was always on the bus or being shipped. And so this was the first time I landed at an airport with all my gear. And the airline would not take the stuff on. It was like too heavy or too big or too metal or too out of shape or whatever. And so I had a load of this hassle at the airport. And almost didn't make the flight. And so I got off the plane on the other end in Iceland, just stressed after my experience in Paris, I got collected at the airport by the promoter, who was this really casual, relaxed guy going, hey, welcome to Iceland. And like 10 to 15 minutes later, I was like semi-naked in the snow, but in this hot water, outdoor, toothpaste-colored pool, with snow falling on our heads and black lava rock. And I was like, where the hell am I? It was one of the most surreal experiences, just getting off a plane and just a few minutes later in the dark, in the snow, in this lava pond of white warm water, and I completely forgot about the flight and the stress and everything, so that was my introduction to Iceland, and it just got better from then on.
Damien Rice is our guest on KCRW. It takes a lot to know a man. I want to talk about this song. I really want to dissect it a little bit.
Oh dear.
Amazing tune. But I really want to talk about the string arrangements, the last section of this song. But tell us where you were, frame of mind, inspiration, anything about that song, because it is remarkable.
It's like that song is about so many things, all at the same time. As it was popping or coming into my head, there wasn't one scenario. I might have started off with one particular line, might have been me thinking of my relationship with one other individual, and then immediately it jumped to humanity and the things that men have done to women in the world, especially religions, through religions, what the oppression over the centuries, and And then that would jump to then what human beings have done to other human beings, and then that would jump back to like, oh my God, what I did to that one single human being, and then what I thought that human being did to me, and just life was just going, it was one of these spaces where I started looking at, we are mad, like we're nutbags, a lot of us, you know, and it became a little bit funny, you know, but also very sad. And so the song has this like lighthearted, just looking at us. There we are, you know. It takes a lot to know a man, a lot to understand, you know. And there's all these examples: the warrior, the sage, the little boy enraged, you know, like that. Like that's the little boy enraged. Just a friend of mine has a son, and I'm godfather for her son. And one day he had a tantrum in the door of the shop. The busy shop, you know, but in the door, on the ground, screaming and kicking, blocking everybody going in and out of the shop, you know, and where did that come from? Where did you know, Hitler's idea to do whatever he did come from? Where did you know, anybody's idea to do whatever it is they do in life? Where does it come from? What is it that stirs that? And so I just started looking at that, and when I started looking at that, there was just so many melodies that I could have kept on writing that song for like 15 minutes, you know, really, and or more. It could have been like a whole hour, really, and all these melodies, like the end section, in a sense, is like this. It's like if I was inside of me when it was all happening. It was like just trying to conjure up all the pain that, you know, that women have experienced directly because, you know, because of the actions of men over the centuries. I was trying to conjure up or to imagine or try to scoop up all that pain and melodically sort of express that somehow, you know.
I mean, there's a quality to the string arrangements that is a little bit gritty in how it's swooning. It's not, the tonality of it isn't, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just really interesting. And, you know, it catches your ear and you go, this is odd, you know, that whole last section. But talk about building a song like that. Where do you start? Do you start with, you know, you make these observations and these universal thoughts about humankind or children or anything. Do you kind of make notes of that and then apply that later in a writing process? Or give us a little insight into how you build a song like that.
Okay, I can just tell you exactly. I mean, there's a piano here.
Go for it.
I literally was like, you know, was in my house in Ireland.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can't remember the exact moment, if I had lunch or whatever. I went and I sat at the piano. My fingers just went. And it was just like. The fingers just did whatever they did, and they found themselves on those notes. And then it was just like and that just went from there, you know. And then it was just like, it takes a lot to know a man, and it just went, you know. I think with music, the moment I find the moment I start thinking I know what it is I'm doing is the moment that I start ruining the thing. Whereas when I just follow, you just sit there and follow. You just follow. That it brings you to a better place than you could bring it. You know, that's what I find. You know.
At the time of our conversation, you've just come into town. You've performed last night at the Emmanuel Presbyterian. How did that show go? Interesting setting. You chose to perform solo at this show, but how was it?
Well, the show, you know, I don't really know. I was so sort of. Well, one, I was late for the sound check, and I ended up in Los Angeles traffic trying to get across town. And I got in, and we had so many things that we'd wanted to try. Like we had a bunch of with the Silver Lake choir coming in, who you know, we wanted to rehearse something with Joel and Shazad. We wanted to rehearse something with them that I hadn't even touched on yet. And then there was a load of sound problems, so everything got delayed, and we were doing right up to doors. We were just scrambling to get everything sound checked, and so sound check was terrible. It was one of those really awful, stressful sound checks. And afterwards, I went backstage, and I just sat down, and I was just like, I do not want to play tonight. I was so exhausted after the sound check. But there's this funny, and I won't call it a rule because I haven't really observed it enough, but they say that if you have a terrible sound check, it usually leads to a great gig for whatever reason. Maybe because the expectations are low, And so I walked out with low expectations thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a mess. And it just sort of fell into this really nice place of looseness, and people afterwards said that they thought it was great, so I guess it was great.
Was that a first, or one of the first where you've performed these songs for a public audience?
Yeah, last night I think I did, it was my first time playing I Don't Want to Change You at a concert, and it was my first time playing a bit of Faded Fantasy at a concert, and it was my first time playing Trusty and True at a concert. Oh, I had done a little thing in Iceland, but it wasn't a concert. It was a small little thing in a studio. But yeah, that was the first proper concert that I actually tried out a couple of songs. Yeah.
I noticed in the set list you performed Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah.
Oh yeah, that was an accident. I may have done that a lot, and I didn't want to. I've played that so many times, I feel like, okay, give it a rest. But somebody last night said, hey Damien, we're in church, bring us to church. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And I didn't even really know what it meant. So, but I just asked them to turn out the lights, and I thought, oh, well, let's do Cold Water then. And then somebody somewhere whispered Hallelujah. I just heard it, and I thought, well, maybe one more time. So I just... It happened, and
it never gets old.
Well, I mean, I do think it's an extraordinary song, but I'm moving from an old era into this new era, and it's just there's a bit of a transition, and so like I think I only played one new song up in San Francisco, and we played what was it, 4.5 new songs there last night. And as we roll, the transition is transitioning, but the record's not out yet either. So I don't want to play all the songs. I want there to be some surprises on the record when it comes out.
Will you be bringing a full band out with you to support this record?
No idea. At the moment, the plan is to start solo and just see what happens. Like it was a real last minute thing to have Joel and Shazad there last night, for example, and even the choir thing with it, that was only in the last sort of like few days. Like, will we do it? Will we not do it? Okay, do it. So yeah.
Well, how would you manage the string arrangements, which I love about this? A few of the songs on this album. How would that just not happen?
I mean, you could do it. It's one of these things. Is like. I actually started off when I started the record, Rick. I thought I was going to make a solo record myself, and the acoustic guitar, maybe a little bit of piano, and maybe one other instrument, or and it didn't end up like that. It grew and just kept on growing. The melodies kept on popping into my head, so these things just as they were popping, I just followed them. And so the same with this tour. I said, okay, I'm just going to start solo, because I don't actually, there isn't like a set band, or there isn't a group of musicians that I'm sort of playing with, on a sort of solid basis at the moment. So I said, let's start solo and see what happens. And, I could get like 25, 30 people together, strings, horns, band, and you could bring that on the road, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be better. That's the thing, because I've done big shows with a lot of people on stage, and they're not necessarily better, and they're not necessarily my favorite. Some of my favorite shows were, very intimate moments, So I think there's a balance, and maybe as well, not so much even a balance, but probably for me the best thing is to just change it up all the time. The more varied it is, the more exciting it is for me. And also then it brings a bit of a surprise factor as well. Like I have no idea what we're going to show up with in Toronto or New York, and neither does anybody else. if anybody has any expectations and then they're disappointed, it's like, well, then they can work on that. It's like that's their little thing to work on. It's like, because there's so many things we could have expectations about in life, and it just drop it and just show up and see what shows up and go with that. And that's kind of my vibe. So.
Well, Damien Rice, congratulations.
Thank you.
My favorite Faded Fantasy, the new album. And thank you for making time for KCRW. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Have you back.